Well, almost any successor will be better than what we have now. Or otherwise, you won't have a nation within months of the successor coming in. If that successor is behaves the way Buhari has done, governs the way he has done, or he does worse, then I think that Nigeria is on a very fast lane to perdition. Now, but there's an element of it that amounts to putting the cart before the horse. Now, we should get our constitution right before we have any election. There is this saying that, I think it's a legal saying that you can't erect an argument on nothing. If you have nothing, you can't put something on nothing, it collapses. So this is the trend. This is the logic of Nigeria today. The kind of constitution that we have, ab initio, predisposes the president or whoever finds himself in position of power to abuse it or to use it arbitrarily, and the illogic of what we call federalism. Nigeria has gotten to a stage on which that nobody needs any longer to preach federalism. What we are going through, the reality we are going through itself has prescribed it, and that we actually have no choice. So I don't know. This government appears to have set itself against any constitutional review, any meaningful constitutional review, and prefers to focus attention, on the succession plan. So, as I said, my own position is that we are putting the cart before the horse. That for us to expect anything different or significantly better or different, right? The fundamental question of the constitution of the country has to be reviewed, has to be done, right? And it is not as if semantics or or polemics, right? The constitution that was chosen for this country, that was freely given to this country, at independence, right? I was jettisoned, was abrogated now. And ever since, we have not had any constitution of equal legitimacy in which you can say this is what the people of Nigeria freely subscribe to, in the manner in which we have been having conditions imposed on us, by the military prefects and supervisors that we have had. So now you find yourself that Nigeria, the extent to which Nigeria has deviated, from that independence constitution, is the extent to which governance has failed in the country. Look at something like, the trivialization of the political structure. Having 36 states. Now, the consequence of that is that it renders those states unviable, in terms of what a coordinate unit of government is supposed to be in a federation, that federalism. The coordinate units, the second tier, are supposed to be coordinate and to a large extent independent of. Now, what we have are like districts or extensions of the federal government. Self-sustain, ability to self-sustain was in the part of the. If you want to create a state in the constitution, that's one of the things that is spelled out there. Now, all the states, and because of the inability to meet those crucial criteria for the creation of the state, from let's say the 4 regions that we had in 1963, is the fact that all the states that have been created ever since have been done under military government. And that is because it is dictation. No constitutional principle or procedure is followed in creating a state or a region. So the logic of that, right from the beginning, right, there was no logic to it. No constitutional, no logic to the creation other than the preference of whoever is the military head of state. So you find that, the political structure has been subverted, right? And of course, the attendant crises, duplicity and replication of government, or spending, 80% of your revenue on recurrent expenditure, servicing the government and things like that. So long as you still have this kind of situation, it's difficult to see how. But then we must also, come to terms with the reality of here and now. Now, my position, right, on the succession to the president, right? Now, let me also begin that it's an indication of the problem, of Nigeria's problem, that we focus so much attention on who becomes the president. And the reason that is that it has become almost like a leviathan, and it's not supposed to be the case. That's why there is so much desperation to get there to become the president, because the power of the president is so disproportionately, large vis-a-vis the rest of the country, and that is not supposed to be the case under federalism, and it was certainly not the case under the independence constitution, where the powers, you have this exclusive, concurrent, and residual. Almost a lot of what used to be on the concurrent list had been taken to the exclusive list of the federal government, including also the residual powers and things like that. So, you have, as I said, the quality of those coming in, of those aiming to become the president. Now, for me, a prior concern, what is of a greater priority, right, is the ability to use the election, to further to restore the sense of nationhood, to bring about greater national integration and national unity as an instrument of achieving that objective. And that is the way I look at the election. And that is the purpose it has served since 1999 by this idea of rotation of power between the North and South, and of course, the 6 zones. So to me, it's an instrument. It's like you are engineering a process towards the achievement of a certain objective. If you look at the problem of Nigeria, at the election, from the perspective of that nationhood, of building a nation building, you will come to the conclusion, again, which was the logic, behind the rotation of power between North and South, is to enable the notion of the nation building. Now, it also, of course, it precludes, the sum of it is nation building anyway. So, first, we have to assume that it is coming to the South, following that principle, which seems to have been accepted or has become operative is now the assumption that the presidency will come to the south. For the sake of Nigeria, I hope that is the case, because embarrassingly or without Nigerian style, we have started hearing arguments that to the contrary, in spite of the obvious logic of doing that. Look, this is in the best interest of the country. We have been hearing things to the contrary, that okay, everybody should contest this and that. But I assume that the next president is coming from the south. Now, if you come to the south, now we have a peculiar situation on our hands, and that is the fact that under APC government, within the party as a party, right, the two main partners, to the party, largely is the Muslim North and the Southwest, right? So they seem now to have reduced what the north-south rotation to north-southwest rotation. That is what appears to be, that is what given the ambition or aspiration of political leaders from the southwest to compete and feel entitled to compete. That is the assumption. Now, of course, that will not serve the purpose I mentioned earlier, which is, of course, the objective of nation building, and national integration and unity. The optimal strategy or option or logic for achieving that objective right now is to have some kind of general consensus, a national consensus of where specifically the president should come from. Now, governed by the logic I've elaborated, governed by the principle of equity, fairness, and justice, governed by the principle of Omoluabi, that being governed by that, according to that logic and that, following that reasoning, that president should come from the southeast, right? That is what, I'm not saying that it's not in constitution. They will tell you it is not constitutional. It's not in the constitution. The Igbos are not they should have gone to APC. They have no representative. You can have one or several arguments. But you must have a nation first, right? Before you can have any other thing. Because before you can even vie for the position of the president. And one of the options, and there are very few options left, one of the options that is still left in Nigeria to stimulate this idea of Nigeria working towards national integration is for a president to come from the southeast. Right? Now, you can even go further that, assuming that Nigeria is unlucky enough or whatever it is, that, or assume that if it comes from the southwest, right, the assumption is that it stays in the southwest for 8 years. Then the principle fundamental of rotation between north and south will take it back to the north, right, for 8 years. That is 16 years, right? So you are going to have a southeast zone in this country that has been effectively kept out of the presidency for how many years now? 16 plus 20 whatever, right? 22 or 23. 16 plus 22, 38, right? Almost 40 years. So now, how do you justify that? How do you engender a sense of being nationhood, of citizenship? I've been reading some literature these days on how young people from the Igbo lads from Igbo no longer believe in Nigeria. The only thing they have lived to learn about Nigeria is being marginalized, is being treated poorly, is being, adversity. Right? I'm not saying that the Igbos are angels. It's not even about them. It is about saying that if you want a country, if you want a nation, these are the things that you need to do. How will that purpose be served by further keeping a zone that has been kept out of power for another 40 years? How will that purpose have the purpose of nationhood? How will it be served? By taking action specifically, limiting it to the southeast. Now then comes to the quality of those individuals. Well, for me, it's nothing to write home about. Some of them, I think, it's an insult or it's a tragedy for Nigeria that people like that will say that they want to be president of Nigeria. No matter how bad, logically and all, no matter how bad Buhari could have been, it's still better than some of these people. I mean, look, people, their record, their reputation. I mean, it's just quite offensive, So I don't want to get too personal, but quite a number of them, I'm sorry to say, it's an indication that Nigeria is in a terrible state. That some of them will indicate, they will nurse the idea of wanting to become the president of Nigeria. It's an indication of how low the country has sunk, that they should be done. I don't know, but my focus, as I said, my own way of looking at it, is that principle, is that logic of nation building. What does that logic prescribe? What does that objective, prescribe for Nigeria at this moment? That is what it prescribes. That, okay, leave it to this, let's have somebody from there. If we then all in principle agree, that, okay, it's their turn, to produce the president, then we can start insisting on the kind of individuals who can become. Then, of course, Nigerians will have, all of us will determine, even if you say that it's reserved for the Igbos, Nigerians will still determine which person gets it. Unfortunately, among those who have been coming out, I haven't seen but the kind of a potential president that excites me, that I look forward to. But of course, there are some that, but unfortunately, power politics does not favor them. We have the Kingsley Moghalu, Obiezekwe, there's a part you told me. To some extent, Peter Obi, yes. Peter Obi, yeah. So you have some of them like that. But I don't know. I'm from the Southwest, but I feel a little bit embarrassed at times. I mean, how do you explain to your children or to any objective gathering that, look, this is the situation in Nigeria today? Nigeria comprises 6 zones, right? Southwest is one of them. Within 22 years, 1999 to 20, that's 24, Within 24 years, the Yorubas have held the office of the president and vice president for 16 years. Now, and then we want to contend for the same office with a zone that has never had such opportunity. Now, how is that fairness? You know, how is that? But in any case, I mean, that's my own. Wherever it is credible candidate, you can get credible candidate from anywhere, including the Igbo. If you limit it to the Southeast, you get a lot of credible candidates. You see, it's people who want to evade, you know, the argument of it's escapism to say that just throw it open, you know, let the best of credit. We haven't gotten into that stage. Don't let us. This is hypocritical. That kind of argument is hypocritical. That let credible. So let the credible people come from the Southeast now, if that is the yardstick. But you know, Nigerians will say something and behave another way. You say we have the same people who are saying the national unity of Nigeria is non-negotiable. Nigeria is one country. Okay, translate that into action and see what you want. If you want that, then everybody, every section must have a sense of belonging. And the greatest marker, the most significant marker of having a sense of belonging, right, is that office. Now, the ideal situation, you know, the functional situation, as I said earlier, is to have a constitution that makes that office, you know, of less consequence, you know, to the wealth, to the people of, you know. It is not in the independence constitution, and it's not supposed to be like that. It's not supposed to generate this kind of desperation, you know, violent passion and things like that. So the best thing for Nigeria, the ideal thing would be to have a constitution that is federalism compliant. If you have that kind of constitution, then of course you can say that who cares who becomes, you know. When we were growing up, I mean, well, I was still an infant. Look, my father was a regional minister, and regional ministers, from my recollection, were more important than federal ministers. Nobody knew who the federal ministers from Yoruba land. They are not. It's not the names are not. They don't ring a bell as much as those who are regional ministers. The regional ministers, the Western region was at the time even lending money to the federal government, right? With who cares, you know, that the Western region, that's why Ahmadu Bello, who was the leader of the MPC, still back in Kaduna. What the regions will have more consequence than the center. You know, and that's what it's supposed to be. Shouldn't be any mad rush to come and become the president of Nigeria. So that is what we have. If we have a constitution, a proper constitution that is federalism compliant, there will not be the need in the first place to worry about. The objective of nationhood, of national integration, will be met by the structure, the way it works, right? Like, I mean, working in amity, you know, rather than seeing ourselves as adversaries, you know. Look, Nigeria elected, my own advisory, you know, strictly speaking, will have been for them to boycott the election, to insist that there must be a review, specifically what you call restructuring or restoration of federalism prior to the election. That's a prior task. That's of greater priority. If you are not going to have that, you are going to have, in terms of what you're talking about, more of the same, right? Given the specific situation, the political context that we have, elections have been commodified. The commodification of election. It has become transactional. That in most cases, you buy your way through. So the electorate, it's difficult to. There was a study done, on the sustainability of democracies, and the per capita income of a country, of any society where democracy is sustainable, is higher than what we have. We have, that where the per capita income is so low, right? It is difficult to sustain democracy there because the people will be, vulnerable, to being bought over or to being corruption will try. So I don't know. I cannot decide for the Nigerian. It's almost the pattern of election in Nigeria tends to be repetitive. If it is not repetitive in reality, the political operators ensure that it looks like it, in which the far north votes this way, south votes this way, and votes that way. That's what you are, that you are going to have. Now, if any of the parties, right, if the presidential candidate of any of the party happens to come from the southeast, then I will encourage people to go and vote for that person. That is if the other party doesn't pick. Now, if Nigeria is lucky enough and the two parties pick Igbo as their presidential candidate, then the merrier, then we are talking. Then we choose the better of the two, of those two. That is one thing that I'm certain of. The other side, and if you don't have that, then the situation will be more of the same. You're going to have a very fluid situation. You may even have the element of crisis and so on. People increasingly, elections have become a do or die affair in the country. I mean, it's like mobs. The Italian mobs fighting one another to become, when it becomes governor, president, House of Reps, senator, and things like that. It has been personalized in a way that is a do or die, that has little to do with the welfare of the public. People go to contest election these days for their own purpose, to manipulate the results of the election. And so that is one area where we should worry about. Now, they are even talking about census. Census within the midst of, conducting an election is going to be a sham, regardless of how much money is wasted on the so-called census. But what should worry us really is that the government, initially their counterparts in the National Assembly, actually, rejected electronic transmission of results outrightly. Now you can see the absurdity of that. In Senate voting against transparent election. Now, more or less the same thing is with the same, logic is what is governing the reluctance of the president to sign the electoral bill. If you sign the electoral bill, what is there is directed at making the election more credible, more transparent, disallowing room for Magomago or for some people from Niger or Chad coming to vote, in Kano or Maiduguri and all those places. So the elections in Nigeria, if the way we are going is already cooked, and baked. So it's just that the rituals will be followed. People will go to campaign, go and vote. There will be an element of violence. Some people will kill one another and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, as Chief Awolowo used to say, we'll discover that, we have embarked on a journey to nowhere. But Nigeria always models true. I'm not God. I cannot predict with certainty what is going to happen. What you can predict with certainty is the continued slide of Nigeria down the road, sinking further and further. If you don't do something, to dam, the bleeding, that you are bleeding profusely. So we have to wish Nigeria the best, but we are reasonable people. I was trained to believe that if you add 2 + 2, you will get 4, not that you will get 5 or 3. So if we're given the state of affairs that we have now on our hands, it's what we call garbage in, garbage out.